Pioneer and pariah are just two of the epithets I am sure that have been used to describe David Kato. Because of his unwavering commitment to advocating for the full human rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex individuals. However, I prefer to think of David as desperately fighting and ultimately losing his life to simply make it easier for people like him to go about our regular mundane lives, contributing to the development of our families, countries, regions, and the world. David sought to do this in his quiet, unassuming way, focusing on documenting, educating about, and responding to human rights abuses against LGBT in his beautiful country of Uganda. I try to do the same thing in my wonderful country of Jamaica, which is this year celebrating its 50th year of independence. I think what motivated David was a deep and abiding faith in the goodness of all humankind, especially his fellow countrywoman. I'm sure he felt that if his people only knew what tremendous harm intolerance and homophobia were causing to countless of their fellow citizens, including the spread of HIV as a result of vulnerable groups being forced underground, away from effective HIV prevention, treatment, care, and support interventions, then all Ugandans would, in one voice, call for an end to such acts of cruel inhumanity. That is why he vigorously opposed the draconian and despicably medieval anti-homosexuality bill, which was before the Ugandan parliament. And that is quite possibly why he was so savagely murdered. Jamaica has been described as the most homophobic place on earth. And one Ugandan commented that David's murder reminded him of the type of homophobic attacks usually reported from Jamaica. One such attack was the brutal and barbaric slaying on October 18, 2011, of a 16-year-old youth, O'Shane Gordon, in the resort city of Montego Bay. Early in the morning, a gang of thugs barged into O'Shane's home and slashed him across his foot as he tried to flee through a window. When they caught up with O'Shane, the men finished him off with several more blows from their machete. O'Shane was killed because of questionable relations with another man. His mother was also severely chopped up. Since 2009, my organization, AIDS Free World, has been engaged in an ambitious and aggressive program in partnership with the major LGBT group on the island, JFLAG, aimed at documenting human rights abuses against homosexual Jamaicans. We are motivated to undertake this work by the vastly disproportionate level of HIV prevalence among Jamaican MSM, 32%, as against a national HIV prevalence of 1.6%. This MSM HIV prevalence rate is about the highest in the world, and there is evidence that the country's homophobia is a major contributor. Between 2009 and 2011, there has been a near 300% increase in the number of human rights violations against LGBT reported to JFLAG. And highlighting these abuses has resulted in very supportive statements for the human rights of LGBT by Jamaican leaders of all stripes. Most notably was a declaration during the December 2011 general election debate by Jamaica's new Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, that she rejected the homophobia of her predecessor, Bruce Golding, and would have no objections to appointing gays to her cabinet. She also stated that she would bring the matter of reviewing the country's 19th century colonial British anti-sodomy law to a conscience vote in Parliament. While she was viciously attacked for her leadership on this contentious issue during the election campaign, she bravely stood her ground, and the Jamaican electorate rewarded her and her party with a 2/3 majority in Parliament. I see Prime Minister Simpson Miller's views as representing what I and my dear mother consider the true Jamaican one love culture. As my mother tells it, during her youth, everyone knew at least one person in the village who was gay, but no one cared. People respected the privacy of others, and the anti-sodomy law was rarely, if ever, invoked. There certainly were no marauding mobs seeking to eradicate gays from the society. However, all this changed during the 1980s and 90s, when there was a coarsening of Jamaican society through a deliberate export of hate and intolerance to Jamaica by, ironically, American televangelists. These preachers spawned sick replicas of themselves in the form of local religious leaders who poured a steady stream of poisoning homophobia into the ears of their congregants on an almost weekly basis. Many of their parishioners and choristers, including young, impressionable individuals who would later go on to record some of the most hateful homophobic songs on earth. These songs, over 200 at last count, contributed to a vortex of hate that swirled unchecked for many years and resulted in numerous attacks, assaults, extortion, and murder of Jamaican LGBT. The previously unused law then became a fixture, and police, who are, after all, products of their society, started to extort, attack, or ignore attacks on gays who were perceived as unapprehended criminals. Despite the obvious harm caused by the existence of the anti-sodomy law, our independence constitution exempted it from judicial review. Last year, Jamaica completed a 12-year process of reviewing the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, but sadly, the anti-sodomy law was once again saved from review by any domestic courts. So in August 2011, AIDS Free World, on behalf of 2 gay Jamaicans, filed a petition before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights on the grounds that the anti-buggery law violates numerous human rights found in the American Convention on Human Rights, to which Jamaica is a party. I hope the new Jamaican Prime Minister will make this legal challenge redundant by calling for the conscience vote as she has promised. A repeal of the law will not result in an immediate end to homophobia in Jamaica. In the same way, homophobia still persists in the UK decades after their law was consigned to history. Sadly, evangelical Christian groups from North America are still funding and supporting a vicious fight to deny the human rights of Jamaican LGBT. Clearly, what is needed, what must occur, is a global strengthening of inclusive religious voices, such as Archbishop Tutu, such as metropolitan community churches, to counteract the religiously inspired homophobia present in Jamaica and in Uganda. One thing the repeal of the law will do is provide gay Jamaicans leverage when they seek assistance from police in the face of attack. When I first started receiving death threats as a result of my advocacy, I made a report to the police. The officer who received my report went off on a homophobic tirade, stating, among other things, that he hates gays and that they make him sick. As a lawyer, I sat there stunned at the sheer level of unprofessionalism of this law enforcement officer. I later reported the matter to an assistant commissioner of police who was recruited from Britain and is financially supported by the UK. And he told me that such attitudes are unfortunate, but they will not change until the law changes. The fact is, the anti-buggery law makes me, at least to the average Jamaican police officer, an unapprehended criminal with few, if any, human rights. I fled Jamaica on January 10, 2011, after my marriage to Tom was made public, when the Jamaica Observer newspaper, which is owned by Butch Stewart of Sandals Resort fame, published an unauthorized photo of our wedding on their website. Even though I requested that the newspaper remove the picture because of the real threats it posed to my safety, they have refused. Since then, I've started receiving a steady stream of death threats. I would like to return to Jamaica to continue teaching law at the University of Technology, Jamaica, as well as assist JFLAG with their documentation and reporting of LGBT human rights violations. But I simply do not feel that the Jamaican police would protect me in case of an attack. The Inter-American Commission has written to them twice on my behalf, and they failed to respond. When I was forced to flee Jamaica, they were requested again by 2 international police forces to at least provide me with an escort to the airport. They initially agreed, and then no one showed up. When they were contacted, they lied and said that they tried calling my phone, my cell phone, and there was no answer. There was no record of any incoming calls. So I may have to continue my work in exile away from my mother, my students, and my home. But I hope one day this vortex of hate will end and I can once again return to the warmth of my amazing country to teach my inspiring students and be able to sit and chat with my mother after a wonderful bowl of her Saturday soup. Until then, Mr. Chair, I promise in David Kato's name that I will never abandon my role in the struggle for the full human rights of LGBT until those human rights are fully realized. Thank you.